the next episode of my Choosing a Fan for Your PC series. If you see me wearing glasses like this means you have now time traveled back to October of 2023. Now, this is going to be posted in, I think, the beginning of November. But hey, congratulations, you're a time traveler. Right, so I am the PC expert amateur, and today I want to talk to you about lighting on fans. Now, there are a lot of fans out there that don't have any lights, and I'm perfectly happy not having lights on my fan. Why? Because I look at the screen, not at what's in the case. The only thing I actually use my fans for that have RGB, and that's only because the case came with RGB fans, is to tell me if it's getting too hot in there. So I have it set to a temperature mode through Corsair IQ. And so when it gets up to about, I think it's like 40 degrees, below 40 degrees, it is going to be green. And when it is between 40 and 60, it'll be yellow. And when it's it's above 80, something like that. Gosh, I think it's up to above 80, then something like that. Anyways, I got it set to 40, 60, 80. So it turns red. Anyways, I'd have to look it up, but I'm just not going to bother because it's not relevant. There are lots, and it changes the shade of the coloring. So the closer it gets to the next thing, the more the color changes in the direction of that. So as it moves higher from green, it starts to become more yellow, and then when it's in the yellow stage, it becomes more red as it gets higher, and the redness can get quite intense as well. So there are three basic choices. Now you can fudge things a little bit by buying a hub or a fan controller or a lighting node or something like that in order to help you control the lights. But as far as these three basic things, they're not interchangeable. Okay, they're separate from each other. You can use all three kinds in your computer. Now, you have to keep in mind that of the three, the only, and I'm talking, when I say lighting, I'm talking about LEDs. It doesn't matter whether it's RGB or ARGB. Those are all LEDs. So unless somebody has hooked up a light bulb to it, you're talking about, and I'm talking about like fluorescent or incandescent, you're talking about LEDs. So the first type is the only one that doesn't need a special header, and you can't do anything with it as far as software is concerned, and even BIOS cannot be used to control it. The best bet is, I don't really recall whether I saw this or not, but I think that there are some standard LED fans out there that have special software for them, but I'm not entirely sure about that. But let me show you an LED fan. Now keep in mind also that how the fan is powered is going to affect how much control you have over the lighting as well as the speed. And additionally, it also will determine what you can use to control the lighting. So this is an Enermax UR Vegas, and it connects to USB-A ports. So you can use any USB-A port. You can use a USB hub. It doesn't really matter. It's got, if you look at the ring here, you can see there are lots of LEDs built into the whole ring all the way around, but it's all one color. So even though you've got tons and tons of LEDs here, the reason you've got so many LEDs is because, and I'm not sure, I think there could have been a more elegant solution than the way they did it, but I actually haven't looked closely to see if it uses all the LEDs for the maximum effect and then just certain LEDs for the lesser effect. But they are staggered at different distances. So like if I start down here where my finger is, there are 5 in a row, then there's a space, then there's 1, then there's a space, then there's 3, and then there's something, I can't tell what it is, and then there are 2 more after that, and then there's a chip, and then there's 5 more, and then there's some components, and then another couple, and then the space, and then we've got, yeah, it varies. Now, you may not have noticed this. This is actually the controller for the lighting. Not all LED fans come with this. In fact, a lot of the LED lights haven't got a toggle switch. This is a toggle switch. So it's just a simple button that you can push to change what lighting effect you're getting. This particular fan has, I believe, 7 different settings. But many fans have only one. It's just on all the time. There's no way to turn it off until you unplug it. So, and some of them don't have, this is not particularly conveniently located. You actually have to reach inside the case in order, if you were to plug this in inside the case. Now, this is a USB, so you could plug it in outside the case, and then you don't have a problem with changing the lighting. But with it inside the case, you have to open up the case and change, click on this to change what the setting is. And that can be a cumbersome system. There are better options out there, but again, most standard LED fans, where all the power comes through one cable for both the fan and the lighting, you don't have any control unless there's some kind of a controller that it comes with. Now, it could be a dial, it could be something else as well. It could be just on off. So let me show you this, and you can get a feeling for at least the very basics of LED lighting. Okay, so here it is. This is the standard setting, and as you can see, the blades are designed in such a way that they reflect the light to a degree, so you get that kind of, I guess you could say, whirlpool effect. And since we have the lighting control, that's the second one. Third one. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. And off, which is the 7th. So that's what a basic LED fan can at best do, is just provide different modes. Now, I believe there are some where it can also affect the brightness, but I don't think I have one that actually has that ability. Now, this is a slightly different model of an LED fan. This is controlled by PWM instead of by USB. And ALZI only seems to make these kinds of fans with LEDs. I've never seen an ALZI that doesn't have LEDs in it. They have, regular ones like this, and then the RGB and ARGB. So let's go ahead and turn this one on. Now, whereas with the previous one, I had no control over the speed, because this is PWM and I have it plugged into my fan controller there, I can control the speed. So you'll probably notice a difference in the noise level. And but you can see how the LEDs are working in this. I have absolutely no control over this. This does not have any kind of a lighting control button like the Evermax did. Or Enermax, sorry. But you can see it's got a nice but not fluid transition of coloration. And that is often typical of LED fans that don't have discrete controls. It looks nice, but there's no variation. Now I've got this one on maximum speed. Before it was on pretty slow speed, pretty minimal. You can maybe hear the difference in the speed. But, it's still moving at the same speed. So one of the disadvantages of the standard LED fans like the two that I've shown you is that if you compare this fan to an identical fan that doesn't have the LEDs, or you have somehow removed the LEDs from the circuit so that all the power is going to the fan will actually run faster. So this scenario, unless the designer has altered the circuitry of the fan, the LEDs in this kind of a fan are going to actually decrease the power of the fan, even if everything else is equal. So that's one reason why you wouldn't necessarily want to get a standard LED fan, simply because if you buy, like Deepcool has the FC and the FK fans. The FC comes with RGB and the FK does not. And by Deepcool's own admission, the FK series is more powerful than the FC, even though otherwise they are identical. Okay, now the second kind of fan is an RGB fan, and RGB fans allow you control over the lighting. Sorry. So you can control not just the fan speed, but you can turn the lighting on and off, and you can change how the lighting is functioning. There are lots of software programs out there. I had to stop using my Asus Armory Crate package from Asus for my motherboard because, quite frankly, it has some behaviors that are very much like malware, which was very irritating for me because they were controlling my fans when I need control over my fans because I test fans, obviously. And it was very irritating because no matter what I did, I couldn't get Armory Crate to leave my fans alone. And so it was overriding my fan curves that I set in BIOS. So setting that aside though, because we're talking about LEDs, I have uninstalled Armory Crate, and so I tried Signal RGB, which is a very popular option for people who don't want to go with a branded product. Signal RGB comes in both a free and paid version. Obviously, the paid version has a lot more functions than the free one, but the free one will give you the minimums that you need. I was unable, without Armory Crate being installed, because Armory Crate controls lighting to a large degree, I was unable to get Signal RGB to get my lights to function correctly. It turned on the lights, and the lights were all one color. It didn't matter whether it was RGB or ARGB. So I ditched Signal RGB and I got Open RGB, and that actually allows me to mess with the mode. So first I'm going to show you an RGB fan so you can see. And unfortunately, it's just like the other ones. I can't actually bring it over to the camera, so I'll bring the camera to it. Now, I chose this one, and don't let the sticker in the middle that's off-center bother you too much. I chose this one because it has translucent off-white blades. And I feel that provides a touch that, it catches the lighting. And when you have flat black blades, that doesn't happen. So there are lots of different options as far as what's going to be colored. So like a flat black is going to not reflect the vast majority of the lighting. A shiny black will definitely reflect some of the lighting, but not a lot. And a shiny, and then if it's got some like reflective material on it, that's going to cause a different effect as well. Also, there are infinity fans which have a mirror-like effect here it's really cool looking, and I will show you one or two of those in a minute. But this is just a standard RGB fan. It doesn't have any switches on it or anything like that. However, and it plugs into an RGB header on your mobile motherboard. If you don't have an RGB header, you must purchase a hub or fan controller that can control the RGB fan. Now again, this is LEDs. The term RGB is just referencing the fact that you have control over the lighting. Now, you can't really do much in most BIOSes, but you can control it through software. You can also, if it comes with remote control, you can control it that way. Now I'm going to just see if I can demonstrate for you. Let's see. So this, yeah, okay, that's, I am not sure why that. Okay, so this is spectrum cycle, which it accepts. And this is rainbow. It doesn't accept all of the options that are available in OpenRGB. So like it doesn't do breathing and flashing, and it doesn't even do static. Um, it doesn't do chase fade or chase. So with this fan, I only have the two options of rainbow and spectrum cycle. But at least it gives you some options as to what you can do with the fan. And I've got this currently set to the lowest setting. This is a Casa. The specific model is the Vegas R7, in case you're interested. And I'm going to turn up the speed to maximum. Now the wobble of the off-center sticker isn't quite as noticeable, but it's still there. And it's a very quiet fan, but it actually does a pretty good job until it reaches its maximum RPM. And then obviously fans that have a higher RPM will defeat it at that point. But at lower speeds, this one I think goes up to 1200 or something like that. At lower speeds within its range, it competes well with stronger fans. This is one of the ones I have actually tested, or done some testing of anyways. So that's that. Now the last thing that I wanted to point out to you when it comes to the regular RGB fans is if you look at the cabling. So a regular fan will have this connector. It'll be either a 3-pin like this, it could be a 2-pin, it could be a 4-pin, which would mean it's PWM. However, if it's not a regular LED fan and it's an RGB fan like this, it'll also have a connector like this one. And I'm trying to get out of the picture so it stops focusing on my face. And as you can see, or hopefully see, there are actually 4 holes in there. And they're on the motherboard, you'll see a header with 4 golden pins sticking out if you've got RGB capability, in which case you'll be able to use this. Now, you cannot mix and match RGB and ARGB. RGB has got the 4 pins, ARGB has 3, or more specifically, 3. So that is important. If you're planning to use RGB fans, doesn't matter which brand, if you do not have an RGB header on there, you must buy a fan hub or fan header that can control RGB fans. That's all there is to it. And that will it will either come with software, or it will come with a remote control, or maybe even both, depending on which one you buy. Okay, and the third option that is currently available that I'm aware of, and the newest option, is what they call ARGB, or addressable RGB LEDs. And that means that through software or specific hardware like a remote control, you can control all of the lights individually. Now, I don't play with this, so I cannot give you fantastic, amazing demonstrations of how this works. It's not my thing, okay? I'm just showing this option to you so that you can make a decision. Do you want it? And if so, then you get to learn how much fun, I guess, it's going to be. So I have got two of these fans, and they're sitting on my desk right now because I've got enough cable length with these to actually get it closer to my camera, but not as close as I want, but still. Like for this one is, wow. One of them is from Zalman, and the other one is Need Max, which is a brand I've never even really heard of. Zalman's been around for a long time, and they've been trying to repair their reputation because previously, well, let's just say the leadership of Zalman was involved in a scandal. So let's show you that. And like I said, with RGB, I have my fans that are RGB fans set to green, yellow, and red for temperature. You can see that there. Okay, so these are two ARGB fans. They're actually daisy chained together. This one actually has an extra connector so you can daisy chain. This one did not come with that feature, which I think is kind of disappointing because unless you buy a motherboard or a fan controller hub that allows for the direct connection of multiple ARGB fans, generally you're going to get one ARGB fan, if any. So you, again, with ARGB fans, you do need to look at the motherboard and see if you've got an ARGB header, and if you don't, you'll have to buy a hub or a fan controller or a lighting node or something in order to control the lighting properly. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of your money, and ARGB fans are definitely more expensive than their counterparts that have RGB or regular LEDs or no LEDs at all, because there's more technology. Now, again, just like with the RGB LEDs, the ARGB LEDs have their own power cable, so you don't actually have to worry about not having control. You have control. It can be through the motherboard, it can be through software or remote control, as I said. And this one is from Zalman. It is, I forgot which one it is. Okay, so yeah, this is the SF120 from Zalman, and this is a brand I've never heard of. It's NeedMax, and this is the LN-3. They're both obviously 120 millimeter fans, but this one has a very different kind of frame for it, where basically it's more about, I think, aesthetics than actual good fan design, because of the missing frame. There's going to be a lot of air escaping this fan instead of being blown where it's supposed to be blown. And at least that's my opinion, because there's no ring going all the way around it, and the fan is going to turn this way. That means a lot of the air is going to shoot off the end of the fan sideways instead of just going straight out. Now you notice this particular fan has got short inner fan blades and the longer outer fan blades. And if you put this kind of a fan on the Spectrum cycle, it's not very impressive. It looks just like this. It's just, you know, a single variation. So I don't really prefer that with this kind of, especially with this fan. With this fan, it's not as important, but with this fan, I feel that the best effect is gained from the rainbow, because you see all these different colors at the same time in different parts of the fan. And sorry, it isn't actually this bright as what my camera is picking up. I don't know why it's showing up as so bright for my camera, but you can see that very nice effect here. And you'll notice this has fan blades that are flat black, and these fan blades are glossy black. So you're already noticing that there is a difference in how the light bounces off of them. So let's turn off this light here, and you can see even better the difference. Sorry. All right, so that helps a bit, I think. I can't get all the lights off because I have to be able to see open RGB. So that's nice. Now let's get the fans going so we can see what the effect is. Now, please keep in mind that this is on a table right now, and because it's on a table, the light is bouncing off the table and back to the fan blade, so you're not necessarily seeing what you're going to see in your case, but I'll try to do a little demonstration to help you visualize that better. So let's get this one going. This one is actually easier to get going. Yeah, there we go. Now that's pretty much the bottom speed. And that's maximum speed. Kind of noisy, but not too bad. And inside of a case, you won't really notice it. So now we'll turn that off so you can hear the need max. This one's a bit stubborn about starting. And that's very noisy. Still, it won't be that loud when it's inside of a case, and depending on what noise is in your environment, it may not be perceivable to you. But we can see, I'll turn this other one back on. They're both at max speed now, and you can see a difference in what's happening with the lighting on the fan blades. This one has a kind of a I don't know, it looks kind of like it's rippling, right? Which is, I think, is interesting. Whereas this one isn't really catching the light very much at all. And if you hold it up against something dark, you can't really, it's hard to see the fan blades, right? Whereas with this one, you see the fan blades even better against a dark background. So keep that in mind for aesthetic purposes, that this one will look great in a dark case. So it depends on what kind of aesthetic you're looking for. Now these are two different type of ARGB connectors. This is actually for daisy chaining. I have this connected to my motherboard. So the bottom one here is the standard one. Oh, come on, stop doing that. See, it's not focusing on the right thing. It's pissing me off. All right, so you can see it's got 3 pins like that. And this one, however, has 3 pins in a row. Now, the Need Max fan that I was using is a little bit different. So this fan is nice because even though it's kind of a cheap fan, I think it's only got 1 speed, and that's why it wasn't spinning up before. But it has daisy chaining capability for both the ARGB and the power. So the power of the Need Max LN3, if I can get this to where I need it to be, is like that. So it's a 4-pin, and then you can see that's also that's not actually a 4-pin. This is a 3-pin, and the reason that this looks like it might be ARGB is because the first fan in the series of daisy chained fans is the one that controls all the fans, or rather is the dominant one, I guess you could say. And so they don't need the middle pin in order to control all the other fans, because the signal goes to here from the motherboard, and then the remaining information that's necessary for the other ones to work at the same percentage is sent by these 3 pins. So oftentimes, but not always, when daisy chaining, you'll see this is not wrong, this is correct. But for ARGB, it should always look like this. And again, you do not want to plug in ARGB to an RGB header, because as you can see, this hole is blocked. And that means when you try to plug it in, you will destroy your ARGB header, because you'll bend that pin that can't go into a hole. This side, theoretically, could be plugged into an RGB header. Well, not a header, but a socket. I'm just not sure what the consequences would be. There might not be any consequences, because we just don't have that other pin, which is my suspicion. But something could happen, because I don't know if the wiring is the same between ARGB and RGB as far as what these 2 pins do and what that pin does. The first one, I think, is the ground, and then it's like 5 volt, 12 volt, and signal or something like that. I don't recall, but I can't guarantee it. So just don't try doing it unless you have verified that this can actually plug into an RGB socket safely. Okay. One thing that's important is when you're not using an ARGB or RGB fan, don't lose the cap that covers the pins if you've got a daisy chainable connection like this, always make sure to put the cap, whatever it looks like. This one has a very modest looking one, and the Zalman's is larger, as you can see. So always keep these pins protected when not in use, because if you don't, you won't be able to daisy chain when that pin, one of the pins or all the pins get bent or broken. And I wanted to show you one more type of ARGB, and this one, it isn't because of just the lighting, it's because of what they've done to make it look, for me, I think these are some of the most beautiful ARGB fans. It could even be RGB, it doesn't have to be ARGB, but they're called Infinity fans. And they come from a bunch of different brands. This one happens to be from Gelid Solutions, which is in Europe, I believe. So let's just take a look at it first. So this is what it looks like. So it doesn't look particularly remarkable. There is the grooving in here, which is supposed to help with the airflow and stuff. And there's this odd blue sticker on here. It's got the shock absorbing corners. And so it looks fairly standard, and you can see that there's obviously lighting inside, but it's only once you get it going that you start to see what is remarkable about this. Now, you're looking at that and you're like, but look at the middle, okay? I want you to pay attention to the middle here. So there's a mirror effect in there, kind of like those LED infinity boxes that are a mirror that create this reflective situation, tunnelish looking situation going on inside of there. And it doesn't matter how close we get, we can still see it. It's very interesting. Now let me switch it from spectrum cycle to rainbow. And now let me turn on the fan. And this is called Stella Infinity. And that's on low speed. I'm going to put it all the way up to maximum. Kind of noisy. And doesn't that look interesting though? Now, I don't know how people feel about this gap that I'm observing between the blue and the pink. It seems to be something, I don't know, it doesn't seem quite right. So there may be some kind of a defect. It may just be the color variation from light to dark that's happening that's most affected by blue because of its wavelength. I'm not really sure. But the other colors, it's fairly smooth. I don't think this is the smoothest. I think they could have done better as far as the smoothness of the transition. But it's very nice, and I really just enjoy seeing that tunnel in the middle. It just adds another aspect. And of course, it's a double ring, so you get it on both sides no matter how you mount it, but you don't get the mirror on the back side. So I think that is something really enjoyable to look at. And I'm going to turn off the light so you can see better. Now, again, this is Gelid Solutions Stella Infinity, but there are several other companies that make Infinity fans as well. One thing I'm noticing now is there's some kind of an imbalance. Not really sure why that's happening. If it's that's weird. Now, the weirdest thing about it is what you're seeing, that kind of cyclonic effect. I'm looking at the fan directly and I'm not seeing that. Now, I do see a subtle waver, but the exaggerated waver that you're seeing on the screen right now is not what I'm seeing with my eyes. So it may be due to a difference in the frame speed of the camera versus my eyes. But my eyes are probably not as fast as picking stuff up as the camera is. Or maybe this has less frames per second than my eyes do, in which case it's missing things that are smoothing out that wobble in my eyes. So if anybody else has an infinity mirror, I would be very curious to hear from you as to whether your camera or phone also picks up that wobble. Just as a note, when I first found out about that Stella Infinity, I was like, wow, you know, I don't care about RGB, but I really want that fan. And I looked online in America and couldn't find it. And it was on sale in Europe. It was on sale on their website, and I emailed them and I said, hey, you know, how can I get this fan? And then within a few weeks, it suddenly started appearing here in the U.S. So they didn't respond directly, as in, you know, emailing me back, but they did take steps to get that fan and other Gelid fans available here in the U.S., which I think is a good thing. Gelid's been around apparently a long time, and I think their reputation is good, but I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyways, so now you've seen standard LEDs, RGB LEDs, and ARGB LEDs, which, you know, the names are a little bit misleading because you can actually have RGB with the standard ones if they have used different kinds of LEDs in the fan, different colors, so it can, you know, cycle through different colors that way. But that would all be pre-programmed in the hardware of the fan. Whereas these two, you know, you can control with software and hardware. And but yeah, it's a little bit, I think they could have come up with a better nomenclature for these different kinds of fans. But yeah, so I hope that has kind of helped to inform you. Again, I'm sorry I'm not an expert in messing with ARGBs and stuff, so I can't show you all of the special possibilities. But if you look on YouTube, I'm sure you will find videos of people who play with ARGB all the time and can show you all the amazing tricks you can do with open RGB and signal RGB, and then the proprietary ones from the companies that make that. I'm not even going to name any of them just because I don't know which ones are actually good. I have Corsair IQ, of course, because my case is IQ, but that is kind of limited, and ASUS Armored Crate is a piece of crap. So yeah, if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. I don't guarantee that I can answer many of your questions about LEDs, but I will do what I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.